Okay. Today I'm going to talk about this book and the series set in Kansas City and why they're set in Kansas City and who the protagonist is. And I have not yet learned how to do PowerPoint, so I have brought old-fashioned show and tell. And this is one of the items I'll probably be getting to in a little while. I thought I would read the first page or so because I'm going to be explaining how I get there, or how I got there. Chapter 1 of January Jinx, Kansas City, Missouri, January 3rd, 1899. The man in the sand-colored uniform swung his duffel bag onto his shoulder and started down the steps of the 9th Street incline. "Wait, Soldier Hanks," cried Minty Wilcox, but he'd already reached the first landing. So she clamped her handbag and portfolio under her arm, lifted the skirt of her garnet-colored wool suit to the tops of her high-button shoes, and followed. The farther down she went, the worse became the dust, the wind, the stench from the cattle yards, and the noise rising from Kansas City's West Bottoms, site of 200 saloons and other less notorious business establishments. A block south of the cable car trestle, across several railroad tracks, stood the Union Depot, grand in spite of the soot covering its clock tower and many cupolas. A block north of the trestle was Minty's destination, Corey and Son Oatmeal and Cereal Company. Her heart thumped harder at the prospect of arriving at Corley's and speaking with them. Minty ran into the soldier hanging over the railing. She jumped back. "Are you all right, Soldier Hanks?" He spoke into the wind. "I beg your pardon?" Minty asked. He glanced over his shoulder and then turned his back to the bottoms below. When he lurched toward Minty, she retreated up 2 steps. "Why, Christina," he said, "you look like an angel, halo and all." "I'm not Christina, I'm..." The blue-eyed soldier stared past her. Wind threw dust into Minty's face, so she turned away. When she looked again, the soldier was falling backwards against the railing. With a shriek of rusty nails, it gave way, and he plummeted to the terrace below. "Soldier Hanks!" Minty rushed down to the next landing. "Are you all right?" A stupid question. Even if his duffel bag had softened his fall, the soldier's right arm was twisted under him. Eyes shut, he jerked with pain. "Help! We need..." A cable car rumbled down the trestle that paralleled the stairs, but only the section above the windows was visible. No one moved among the shanties on the terraced hillside to the south, but under the shelters next to the Union Depot, far below, the platform sprouted valises and men's boots and trouser legs. "Help!" Minty waved her arms. "We need help." A train, its big black locomotive dragging a veil of dark smoke, chuffed into the station, hiding the men from view. Minty dropped her portfolio and handbag, hiked up her skirts, and climbed the railing. "If Mama finds out I displayed my drawers to the entire West Bottoms like this," Minty thought, "she will lock me up for a week." By the time Minty got to him, the young man was snoring, as Papa's old beagle had done just before he died. "Oh no, he was dying, and it was all her fault. If, stuttered in her brain. "If I hadn't spoken to him, if..." She wiped away her tears and stooped. "Soldier Hanks?" "What did you go pushing that poor feller for?" a man asked. Okay. Okay. Well, how did I come to write a book, this book? Well, I guess it started with my great Aunt Millicent Perkins, who at age 20, in the year 1900, set out to find a job as a stenographer in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And she, unlike Minty Wilcox, my protagonist, she pretty quickly got a job as the stenographer at the Daily Home News in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And she stayed there for 67 years, rising to the job of secretary/treasurer. She, like more than one queen, had a diamond jubilee during her career. And I have always been proud of my great aunt Millicent. And I did have a picture of her on her high school graduation day, or in her celebrating her high school graduation, and I put it away somewhat place safe, and I have not been able to find it. So I do have this very poor photo copy of a picture of my great aunt Millicent with most of her family members. And this was probably taken around 1895, I'd say. Maybe a little later, maybe about the age of she was when she graduated from high school. And so this is my great aunt Millicent. Eventually, she became my great aunt. This is my grandmother, great grandmother. Laura Wilcox Perkins, and Minty's mother is named, Minty's mama is named Laura Wilcox also. And this is the young man that became Eddie in my book, my Uncle Dunn, my great Uncle Dunn, and so on. I'll pass it around. And this little girl is probably the ancestress of the character Peach. If you've read any of my book yet, you've met Peach. And this young man was my great uncle Charles, who died of in the influenza epidemic of 1919. My great aunt Millicent and the publisher that she worked for. Everybody else in the newspaper company went down with the flu in 1919, and she and the publisher together put the newspaper out in 1919, those months when the flu was the worst. So that's my inspiration, and but I decided not to put her in New Brunswick, New Jersey, because I was here, and it's a lot easier for me to research. So that's why I have placed the book where I have. And I'm an old teacher, and I've got my lesson plan all here. I wanted to make my character like my great aunt Millicent. Her subsequent history is different. My great aunt Millicent never married. But Minty Wilcox is going to get married sooner or later, and you probably can guess who, to whom, if you've read any of the book. When I started to research this, I decided I didn't grow up here. Some of you have grown up here. I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Huntington, West Virginia, which is another river town bounded on the north side by a river. And it also is like Kansas City in the railroad. It's very important in Huntington's history. It was built, in fact, as the western terminus of two railroads, the Baltimore and Ohio, and the Chesapeake and Ohio, so that it could bring coal out of the coal mines, take them down to the Ohio River, put them on barges, and send it down the river. That's that history. The history of Kansas City, of course, is a little different. Okay. And in 1900, Kansas City had a population of about 50,000 people. of those, 1 in 10 were women who worked outside of the home in respectable professions like school teachers. Miss Ella Schooley helped her brother run a office supply in the New York Life Insurance Building, which is still there. It was brand new in 1900, or very new, and the tallest building around back then. And at any rate, I didn't know Kansas City. Not then, and not, not in 1900 or 1899, and not at all. So I had to find out about Kansas City. And luckily, I had 2 friends who grew up in Kansas City, and one in particular had deep roots in Kansas City history. And so her name is Blair Hyde, and my other friend is Sally Ohms. And so one day we set out in search of Kansas City as it once was. And we went to, one of our first stops was this house on Jefferson and 17th, up near the Bluebird Bistro now. And it's a really nice house, really gorgeous height. And I'm trying to find another picture that's got, here's the side view, okay? So I didn't know it, but I found Minty's house already. And that house is still there. And I was there last Saturday. Right by. Isn't that nice? I found out from one of my best resources, which is the Kansas City Star. Back then it was the Evening Star. That it has all sorts of information. And I'm pretty sure this house was purchased for $7,000.
That's a lot.
And yeah, and it is a lot. One thing that you can remember was that you could buy with a penny what you'd have to spend with spend $1 on now. So you add a couple of zeros and you've got a very nice house. Let me put this up here so it doesn't bother me. Okay, so I found Minty, without knowing it, I found Minty Wilcox's house. But another tour that, or another place that we stopped was we went over to Clark's Point, and looking down, it occurred to me, what would my character have seen in 1899? At that point, and that's kind of the starting point of the book. Finding out what she would see and what she would do and so on, powered my research for this book. One thing that we did see, by the way, this was around 2005 that we went on this search. And looking somewhat to the north and west, we saw the J.G. Peppard Company, which is still there down in the warehouse, the seed company. It was still there. And you could still read the J.G. Peppard on the side. That was my friend Blair's grandfather's house, or company. It was hit by the 1903 flood, the 1907 flood. Those weren't so bad. It was, let's see, what was the big flood? Was it 57? 51. It did okay in previous floods, but it was pretty much wiped out economically because it was the time of year it took out their entire stock, and so they didn't make it past then. Okay.